Perhaps some people's understanding of the millennium looks a lot like Disneyland, where it's all set up and ready for us to enter in and enjoy. Things happen automatically and magically, and really it's just a huge party with family and friends while we're doing temple work for 1,000 years. So for those people, this next perspective may be for them. Now, there is no disagreement on the fact that there'll be a gathering and temple work, but to have everything else set up like Disneyland, where we just have to enter in and it's ready to go, well, let's answer that using John 14:2, where it says, "In my Father's house there are many mansions. If it were not true, I would have told you. I go to prepare a place for you." It's an assumption, mostly done in humor, that those mansions mentioned in the Scriptures are ours, and the Lord has gone to prepare them for us. That all we have to do is good deeds here in mortality and show up there like some sort of royalty and simply take possession of it. We even joke about it during acts of service, suggesting that someone's good deeds will lead them to having an extra wing built on their mansion. As stated, this is done in humor, but is there a kernel of truth in people's joking, suggesting that they at least hope that it may be true? It's hard to say, but even the hymn, "Have I Done Any Good?" has that line which says, "Then wake up and do something more than dream of your mansions above." Either way, it's a scripture worth discussing. Does it ever occur to people that those mansions might already be occupied by other people? And what if the Lord didn't necessarily build it for them either? You see, right after he says there are many mansions, he immediately says, "I go to prepare a place for you." What does that mean? Is it assumed that preparing a place is the same thing as building a mansion? What if it's not? Let's look at history for a potential answer. Despite all that Nephi had been through from the time he left Jerusalem to the land bountiful, he was commanded to build a ship from scratch, even the tools from scratch. As valiant as he was, there was no boat waiting to reward him for his endurance, just a lot of hard work and a grumpy workforce. And it's interesting, the Lord chose to help Nephi by sending an angel to stop Laman and Lemuel from attacking him, but he still didn't build him a boat. When they got to the promised land, there was no city waiting to be taken possession of, just dirt and vegetation and a lot of bugs. It was the tools and skills he learned while building that boat that he also used to build up those settlements. And those skills will be passed down to future generations and improved upon to do the same, which ultimately resulted in great cities. In our era, despite all that the saints went through in Nauvoo and Missouri, then crossing the plains to the Salt Lake Valley, the Lord handed them a desert and told them to get busy. Even the 500-plus settlements that Brigham Young asked the saints to build had to be carved out through hardship. And despite the best intentions, not all of those settlements succeeded. So history shows that when the Lord said he would prepare a place for us, the best answer may come from President Monson. The Lord believes in raw materials, not finished product. The full quote reads as follows: "God left us the world unfinished for man to work his skill upon. He left the electricity in the cloud, the oil in the earth. He left the rivers unbridged and the forest unfelled and the cities unbuilt. God gives to man the challenge of raw materials, not the ease to finish things. He leaves the pictures unpainted and the music unsung and the problems unsolved, that man might know the joys and glories of creation." Elder D. Tucker Stopperson added this: "God has designed this moral existence to require nearly constant exertion. By work we sustain and enrich life. Work builds and refines character, creates beauty, and is the instrument of our service to one another and to God. A consecrated life is filled with work, sometimes repetitive, sometimes unappreciated, but always work that improves, lifts, and aspires." One last historical example comes from Marion G. Romney, as he summarized the experiences of the Pilgrims when they first landed in the Americas. "They landed in a forbidding wilderness. No federal housing, so they went to work and built their own. No free stamp program, so they raised what food they ate, and when they didn't raise enough, they went without. No free schools, so mothers taught their children. No recreational programs. They were too busy working. No anti-draft riots. Everyone was expected to share in the protection of his country. No Social Security. No security at all, except for what each provided for himself. But were there compensations? No rioters demanding something for nothing. No unwashed students telling their mothers what to teach. No wasteful bureaucrats paying themselves out of the workers' production. Nothing really for the Pilgrims but hard work, and a lot of it. Did it pay off? Our standard of living proves it. So the summary is that in each of these cases, the Lord did prepare a place for them. The area and resources to build that boat in the land bountiful was prepared for Nephi before he even got there. The promised land was prepared for the Nephites and Jaredites, and even for the pilgrims, as America is that promised land. And within that promised land, the Salt Lake Valley was prepared for the saints. The Lord gave them raw materials, not finished product. He strengthened them and inspired them, but let them do the work. And why? Well, Dal Nacho says it best when he said, "Whatever causes us to be dependent on someone else for decisions or resources we could provide for ourselves weakens us spiritually and retards our growth towards what the gospel plan intends us to be." President Monson follows it up by adding this: "Our responsibilities derive from mediocrity to competence, from failure to achievement. Our task is to become our best selves. One of God's greatest gifts to us is the joy of trying again, for no failure ever need be final." And President James E. Faust said, "Perseverance is demonstrated by those who don't give up even when others say it can't be done." So if history is our guide, the same thing applies to us, and not just here in mortality, but beyond that, the millennium. We will have to build and maintain that too, and even those mansions when the time comes, and the many things beyond that. There is not a single person who is completely put together. We all have strengths and we all have weaknesses. So regardless of where we are in life, or however long we've been there, we start first by recognizing the principles of the Lord that we already do know, then learning the rest, then building our future into what we want it to be. We don't wait for better and easier times to live these principles. We create better and easier times by living these principles. And this takes us to the next video, where we will discuss what does cross the veil. And you can find the link to that video in the description below, along with links to the other videos about this and our stake website.